Welcome to episode 33 of your CYSA Plus Prepcast. In this session, we focus on one of the most practical, investigation-driven skill sets in cybersecurity, leveraging DNS and IP intelligence sources to detect and respond to malicious activity. These intelligence resources offer visibility into attacker infrastructure, reveal hidden relationships between domains and IPs, and provide context that transforms isolated alerts into actionable incidents. Analysts who can effectively interpret DNS behavior and evaluate IP reputation gain a significant advantage in threat detection, threat hunting, and incident response. These capabilities are not only highly relevant to the CYSA Plus exam, but are foundational to operational excellence in modern cybersecurity roles. To start, let's clarify what we mean by DNS and IP intelligence. These are forms of threat intelligence that focus specifically on domain names and IP addresses, two of the most commonly used elements in cyber attacks. DNS intelligence focuses on how domain names are registered, resolved, and used over time. This includes evaluating domain age, ownership, hosting infrastructure, and associations with other domains. IP intelligence, on the other hand, focuses on the behavior, origin, and reputation of IP addresses used in communication. Both forms of intelligence help analysts understand where threats originate, how they operate, and which infrastructure should be blocked or monitored. DNS intelligence is especially valuable because so many attacks begin with a domain, whether it's a phishing link in an email or a command and control server reached by malware. Analysts evaluate domain characteristics such as creation date, time to live settings, registrant identity, and hosting provider. Newly registered domains, for example, are often associated with phishing attacks and should be flagged for monitoring. Domains with obfuscated WHOIS data or free DNS hosting services may also be considered suspicious. On the exam, you may be asked to analyze domain information and determine its relevance to a potential phishing or malware campaign. WHOIS databases are a primary tool for DNS intelligence. They contain records of domain name registrations, including the name and contact information of the registrant, registration and expiration dates, and the associated name servers. Analysts use WHOIS to verify domain ownership, identify patterns of reuse across malicious campaigns, or flag domains with fake or redacted registration details. WHOIS queries can help trace threat actor infrastructure or identify campaigns where many domains are registered by the same email address or hosting company. CYSA Plus questions may require you to interpret WHOIS data or identify signs of domain abuse. IP intelligence provides a parallel set of capabilities, enabling analysts to evaluate the reputation, history, and characteristics of specific IP addresses. This includes assessing whether an IP has previously been involved in spam, malware distribution, scanning, or brute force attacks. Reputation scores, often provided by services like AbuseIPDB, Talos Intelligence, or Alien Vault OTX, help analysts determine whether to block, allow, or further investigate traffic from a given IP. These services are frequently integrated into firewalls, IDS/IPS systems, and SIEM platforms for automated detection. You may be tested on how to use IP reputation data to validate alerts or configure rules in a detection platform. DNS reputation services, such as Cisco Umbrella, Google Safe Browsing, and Quad9, offer analysts a quick way to assess whether a domain is known to host malicious content. These services provide real-time ratings, blacklists, and threat categories for domains and URLs. Analysts use DNS reputation to prevent access to known phishing sites, malware payloads, or exploit kits. And when integrated with security tools, these services enable automated blocking of dangerous domains at the DNS resolution layer, often before a payload is delivered. Expect questions on how DNS reputation is used in access control or how it differs from full content inspection. Passive DNS is another essential intelligence source. Unlike real-time DNS lookups, passive DNS provides historical data on how domains have resolved over time. This includes previous IP associations, changes in DNS records, and relationships between domains and hosting infrastructure. Analysts use passive DNS to uncover attacker infrastructure that may be reused across campaigns or to investigate domains that appear suddenly in log. For instance, multiple suspicious domains resolving to the same indicator, a shared malicious server. On the exam, you may be asked to interpret passive DNS results or use historical resolution data to support a threat investigation. DNS sinkholing is a defensive technique that allows analysts to intercept DNS requests to known malicious domains and redirect them to a harmless IP address. This disrupts malware communication, prevents data exfiltration, and helps identify infected hosts attempting to reach command and control servers. Sinkholing is often implemented through internal DNS servers or integrated threat feeds, and is used in both detection and containment strategies. Analysts must monitor sinkhole logs to identify compromised systems. The CySA Plus exam may include scenarios where DNS sinkholing is recommended or require you to analyze sinkhole activity data. IP geolocation data is another useful element of IP intelligence. Analysts use it to determine the physical or regional origin of IP addresses seen in logs or during an incident. Unexpected connections from countries where the organization has no presence may suggest account compromise, botnet activity, or scanning. Geolocation data can also support policy enforcement, such as blocking traffic from sanctioned regions or highlighting VPN use during login attempts. You may encounter exam questions that ask how to interpret IP geolocation or assess risk based on connection origin. Finally, reverse DNS lookups allow analysts to resolve IP addresses back to their associated domain names. This technique helps identify shared hosting environments, content delivery networks, or known malicious infrastructure. For example, if an IP address resolves to a suspicious or unrecognized domain, it may indicate an attacker-controlled server. Reverse lookups can also reveal mismatches between domain names and expected services. The exam may ask you to use reverse DNS information to investigate malicious traffic or confirm whether an IP is associated with a reputable provider. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are more security courses on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. In the first half of this episode, we explored how DNS and IP intelligence empower analysts to detect and investigate malicious infrastructure through tools like WHOIS, passive DNS, and reputation services. Now, let's build on that foundation by examining how analysts apply this intelligence in real-time threat detection, threat hunting, and defense orchestration. These capabilities are crucial for reducing dwell time, tracking attacker infrastructure, and proactively disrupting malicious activity. In this second half, we will focus on the integration of DNS and IP intelligence into security platforms, advanced use cases, and how these tools contribute to a broader incident response and cybersecurity strategy, all of which are relevant for both the CySA Plus exam and daily SOC operations. One of the key operational benefits of IP intelligence is the ability to correlate a single suspicious IP address with known malicious behavior across threat intelligence databases. For instance, a given IP might be associated with distributed denial of service activity, brute force login attempts, or previous malware command and control infrastructure. By referencing multiple sources such as AbuseIPDB, Spamhaus, or Shadow Server, analysts can validate the context of a suspicious alert and prioritize responses accordingly. When a firewall or endpoint logs communication with a high-risk IP, threat intelligence integration enables immediate escalation and automated containment. Expect to see exam questions that involve evaluating IP intelligence indicators or determining whether to block, investigate, or suppress based on IP reputation score. DNS and IP intelligence are also foundational to proactive threat hunting. Analysts conduct hunts by querying SIEM platforms for DNS resolutions to suspicious domains, correlating known bad IP addresses with internal connection logs, or looking for patterns in dynamic DNS usage. They may search for domains that use fast flux hosting, randomized subdomains, or newly registered domain names. Techniques commonly used by malware operators to evade detection. Threat hunters also trace infrastructure clusters, where multiple malicious domains resolve to the same hosting IP or network block. The CySA Plus exam may test your ability to recognize domain naming patterns or use DNS and IP data to build a threat hypothesis. Reverse DNS lookups are especially useful when analyzing unknown IP addresses seen in firewall or proxy logs. By resolving these IPs to their associated domain names, analysts can gain context about whether the destination is a known business service, content delivery network, or malicious site. This helps distinguish between legitimate traffic and suspicious connections. For example, an IP resolving to a domain that shares infrastructure with known malware campaigns may warrant deeper investigation. Conversely, an IP that resolves to a trusted cloud service provider may be benign, depending on usage context. Expect exam questions that require you to evaluate the results of reverse lookups and determine next steps. Dynamic DNS services present another threat vector. These services allow users to associate a domain name with a changing IP address, often for convenience or to host small servers. However, attackers also exploit dynamic DNS to create disposable infrastructure for phishing pages, malware payloads, or temporary command and control servers. Analysts monitor for domains registered through dynamic DNS providers and flag activity involving these domains for enhanced scrutiny. CySA Plus scenarios may ask you to identify indicators of dynamic DNS abuse or suggest how to detect this behavior through DNS monitoring. DNS tunneling is a covert communication method used by attackers to exfiltrate data or establish command and control channels over DNS. Analysts detect tunneling by identifying unusual DNS query patterns, such as very long subdomain strings, a high volume of queries to a single domain, or abnormal query timing intervals. Detection tools may include DNS analytics platforms or Zeek scripts tailored to flag tunnel-like behavior. Analysts must also be aware that legitimate services can sometimes resemble tunneling patterns, requiring careful validation. The CySA Plus exam may include DNS logs or visual graphs of queries and ask whether tunneling is present and how to respond. Threat intelligence platforms, often called TIPs, provide a centralized location for aggregating DNS and IP intelligence from multiple sources. These platforms help analysts manage indicators of compromise, enrich investigations, and push intelligence into SIEMs, firewalls, and endpoint detection tools. Common TIPs include Threat Connect, Recorded Future, and Anomaly. TIPs allow for automation of enrichment processes, reducing the time needed to evaluate domain and IP alerts. They also support collaborative analyses and sharing of intelligence within and across organizations. On the exam, you may be asked how a TIP differs from a threat feed, or what benefits come from centralizing threat intelligence in a SOC. Updating security systems with current DNS and IP intelligence is critical to maintaining strong detection and response capabilities. Analysts regularly refine firewall block lists, IDS signatures, correlation rules, and SIEM alerts based on new intelligence. For example, if a tip or feed flags a domain associated with malware distribution, that domain can be added to a deny list within the DNS resolver. Analysts also tune playbooks and SOAR platforms to automate alert triage and incident workflows based on new domain or IP indicators. The CySA Plus exam may present update scenarios and require you to choose which intelligence should trigger policy changes or alert revisions. Effective documentation of DNS and IP intelligence investigations supports incident response, reporting, and continuous improvement. Analysts record which intelligence sources were used, what indicators were discovered, how they were validated, and what actions were taken. These records contribute to after-action reviews and help build a knowledge base for future investigations. Detailed documentation also supports compliance audits, where organizations must show how threat intelligence contributed to threat detection or risk mitigation. On the exam, expect to be tested on what elements should be documented in DNS incidents and how these records improve organizational readiness. Collaboration with external organizations enhances the effectiveness of DNS and IP intelligence efforts. Security teams often work with ISPs, hosting providers, law enforcement, and industry groups to share indicators, report abuse, or coordinate takedowns of malicious infrastructure. This cooperation helps dismantle attacker operations and supports collective defense efforts. Analysts may participate in information-sharing groups such as ISACs or contribute findings to open threat intelligence communities. CYSA Plus questions may cover the value of collaboration and what steps to take when working with third parties on domain or IP incidents. To wrap up this episode, DNS and IP intelligence are cornerstones of a cybersecurity analyst toolkit. These sources of data help uncover hidden infrastructure, detect early signs of attack, and guide proactive defense strategies. By understanding how to interpret WHOIS data, analyze passive DNS relationships, evaluate IP reputation, and detect tunneling activity, analysts gain the context they need to respond decisively and prevent escalation. For the CySA Plus exam, focus on how these intelligence sources integrate with SIEMs, EDRs, firewalls, and tips, and how they contribute to threat hunting, correlation, and investigation workflows. Thanks for listening. To learn more about cybersecurity, please visit baremetalcyber.com. There you will find best-selling books, videos, and even more free cybersecurity training courses. Please subscribe to the Prepcast and our various podcasts. And thanks for listening.